I think in terms of our program, which in its earlier phases focused on inpatient delivery, I think that many folks may initially think of a business plan, but really program design is broader in concept. It represents what you want to be known for, what are your services, how do you educate about your services, how do you market your services about your particular program. So there are many aspects that you must take into account, like needs assessments, readiness assessments, your market, your referral source, the product of your program. So when we talk about program design, we have to take all of those things into consideration as we design what we want to be known for and what we want to achieve in terms of outcomes. So there are a lot of aspects to program design and moving forward, but it's important basically to start with the ideas of what are the components that lead to a solid program design to ensure that you're more successful in the end with your program or your product. I think the first step in considering program design and the first thing that organizations, programs, groups need to do is look at their current resources. Number one, look at the needs of the population or the constituency in which they hope to serve, and then look at where there may be gaps first in designing the program so that essentially you under-promise and over-deliver in terms of the program or the services that you want to offer. So in terms of the placement of a needs assessment, I'm a firm believer that a needs assessment needs to precede a program design. It seems to me very difficult to design anything, and I think of an example of an architectural design. If I'm designing or an architect and designing a home for a family, I would certainly want to take into account the needs of the family. How many bedrooms do they need? How many children do they need? Are they individuals who like to entertain? Do they like lots of outdoor space? As the example. So I think that a needs assessment needs to come before you really design your program. Again, to make sure that if there are gaps between the needs and the resources that you have for your program, you can address that more timely and intentionally to be able to design the type of program that will be successful. I also think that a readiness assessment for some institutions would be a part of the program design, because you may have needs, you may have gaps, but an organization may not be quite ready for a program. And so that can be complementary, a little bit different from a needs assessment, but a readiness assessment. So a readiness assessment takes into account more of the individuals that would be performing the services or the ones that would be impacted to see, am I ready for this type of program? Am I ready to accept change? So in some ways it relates to the change management or the organization's readiness to implement a new program, and it looks more at the impact that a program or new services may have on their workflow or on things that are already existent. So a readiness assessment, I think, in some ways is overlooked in many organizations, because we may have wonderful ideas and programs and things that we need to change and that we're designing, and we can do a needs assessment to say it's needed, but are the folks that have to implement it ready? And are the folks that will be impacted by the program, are they ready for the change? So it can be robust, it can be very simple, but I think it adds an element that many organizations overlook. It can be a complement to a needs assessment, but a readiness assessment to see if the individuals that are, again, impacted or those that have to implement the changes are really ready to do so. So the top steps that I feel are important in a program design, number one, is defining the needs. Number two, it's defining the resources that are already existent so that you can match where there's a gap or hopefully fill the gap. And then thirdly, I think really important, is defining what your message is. Clearly defining what your message is and what your, for lack of a better term, what your brand is. What your message is, what you want people to be able to recite about your program in a very condensed manner, so that every individual from the senior leadership down to the individuals that are impacted on the front line can have the same message about your program. So doing a needs assessment, number one, looking at the resources you have to see where there are gaps, if you can meet that need in the program design, and then really having everyone involved come up with their elevator speech or their brand or the message that they want the program to be known for.